Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 12, Episode number 32. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us for this Wednesday show. Steelers Nation. Dave, got a great show today. Got Mike Tomlin's press conference to cover. Ben speaking with the media right now. And a little bit later in this show, we'll have a Broncos beat writer on. That man is Ryan O'Halloran. He's a Broncos beat writer for the Denver Post. Also has a podcast, First in Orange. He'll be on and joining us to talk about the Broncos and preview this Sunday's game. Dave, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You didn't go out and see the Stones the other night?
Is that the Rolling Stones? Is that what? I don't know. I don't know my music. Is that Mick Jagger?
Yeah. Well, the only other Stones is Fred and Wilma.
Yeah. I've watched more Flintstones than I've listened to Mick Jagger. So.
Okay, I take it you didn't go out and see
I did not
go. Keith Richards and Mick Jagger there. Who's older? Mick Jagger or Ben?
Who's more mobile, Mick Jagger or Big Ben?
Probably
sure.
Mick Jagger.
So.
Probably has a better. Probably could get out of the pocket and extend plays a little bit better at this point. No, we don't need to open this show banging on Ben. There'll be plenty of time to do that, I think, based on some of his quotes coming out of his press conference today. But other than that, I'm doing fine. How are you, Alex?
I am doing well myself. All right, Dave, let's get into some Steelers talk here. Mike Tomlin had his press conference on Tuesday and issued the injury report. I know you wrote it up, Dave, here. Let me go ahead and pull it up here. Some good news, some bad news, kind of the way things go. Start of the week, Cam Sutton, Kevin Dotson. No real status updates on those guys. Still Sutton with a groin, Dotson with a hip injury. Ben was added to the injury report list from Tomlin with a hip injury as well. Did say that Tomlin expects to get back Chase Claypool and Jakumar Corfor in practice, and Zach Banner continues to make progress. Still on IR, could be eligible to return this week, but we'll have to see what his status is probably by Saturday.
Yeah, we're going to have to pull out the old push pin diagram on Ben Roethlisberger, pec, hip. I mean, I think you followed through and put together one of those grimace videos, did you not? And put it out on the Twitter machine. That poor guy's been beat up, has he not?
Yeah, it's been pretty. I mean, again, he's had his own issues for sure, but he's taken some big hits, some of the bigger hits. He's probably taken more big hits this year than he took all last year combined.
I think obviously the big things to watch, Cameron Sutton with that groin and Kevin Dotson with the hip. At this point, anything can happen, but I would still expect Roethlisberger to play. I don't think he's going to practice on Wednesday. He doesn't practice on Wednesday. Thursday obviously would be the big day for him, because if they have any inkling that Roethlisberger is not going to play on Thursday, I would think Mason Rudolph would get the bulk of the snaps on Thursday there. But Roethlisberger has obviously gone through weeks before with barely practicing and then playing on top of it. So we'll watch that. Hopefully they can get Chase Claypool back from his hamstring injury. That did kind of happen later in the week there. So it's probably not guaranteed. Mike Tomlin just says, look, we'll let their participation be the guide there. I would imagine the same with Jakumar Corfor with coming out of concussion protocol. But even if Jakumar clears at this point, you have to wonder if he would even get the start at this point based on the way Joe Haig played, and within that is the status of Zach Banner this week. Zach obviously resumed practicing last week, was not activated to the 53-man roster on Saturday, so obviously did not play against the Packers. Is this the week? I mean, we're probably not going to know for sure until Saturday, because that would be the day that they would activate him from IR to the 53-man roster, so it might be a guessing game when it comes to that. But either way, it probably would be a shock if Chukwuma Okorafor starts at right tackle there. The other thing I guess we'll be watching today, there was no update, or Mike Tomlin was not at least asked about it, is what's going to is today, Wednesday, the day that either or both Stephon Tuitt or Anthony McFarland Jr. Return to the practice field. The Steelers will obviously have to announce that at some point today if it does happen. So we'll sit and wait and see what happens there. And either way, if both those guys do resume practicing, probably unlikely that they play against the Broncos on Sunday, but we'll see. Right. Tomlin did not update the statuses of defensive tackle Carlos Davis or guard Rashad Coward. Both those guys were inactive, ruled out on the injury report last Friday. Did not play. Carlos Davis, I think he's missed every game since week 1 now. That was, Rashad's been inactive anyway, so it's not a huge deal when it comes to either one of those guys right now. But Mike Tomlin did not update the status of either.
I guess that's just been a week-to-week thing, but I'm surprised Carlos Davis never landed on IR. Kind of feels like that would have been a smart move to put him on there, but I guess that he could just take up the weekly inactive spot anyway. But something's going on with him, obviously, and this team could certainly use him back in the lineup.
Yeah, and the Steelers, when the Buccaneers waived Khalil Davis, his twin brother, a few days ago, I posted that on Twitter with the little googly eyes because it doesn't take a heart surgeon or a rocket surgeon to figure out the link there between the possibility that the Steelers might have interest in a guy like Khalil Davis off waivers. Well, they indeed put in a waiver claim for him, but they were not high enough, and they should have lost one more game, Alex. Then they'd have if they had lost that game to the Bills in the opener, they would have Khalil Davis right now. But instead, I think he went to, who was it? The Colts, I believe, claimed him. So they were definitely in a market to get Carlos Davis' twin brother Khalil.
They did sign a defensive lineman to the practice squad, though. That is Eli Anku. He was signed on that kind of vacated spot, that extra 16 spot that they had still to play with. And so he's been assigned. He was with the Falcons, I believe, and has played a little bit of NFL experience, but not much recently. So that's one roster move we should note.
Yeah, he's bounced around with 6 or 7, I think, NFL teams, something along that line there. But obviously hasn't played a lot. And UCLA probably. I forgot to look. Did we do anything on him? Pre-draft report on him at all?
I don't feel like it. Let me look here quickly. I don't believe so, though.
I don't remember.
No, we've never written a report on him or anything.
All right, so obviously he's on the practice squad right now, and the Steelers' 4 protected practice squad players this week were Taco Charlton, Carl Joseph, and then the 2 guys that were elevated to the roster, over the weekend there, that being Cody White and Chaz Green. I would think and hope that really the only legitimate guy, maybe, and I guess that would only be because of the issue that with Chase Claypool, would be Cody White would probably have the best chance at possibly going back to the roster this week, but he's already been elevated twice.
Right. So he would have to stay if he got elevated again.
Right. So he would have to be signed off of the practice squad there. So hopefully it doesn't come down to that. Hopefully they don't need Chaz, Green back. I suppose that's a possibility if Banner doesn't get activated, and if Okorafor can't dress, then maybe there's a chance with Chaz Green going back to the 53 or the active inactive, I should say.
Which means Green is one snap away from playing, which means God help us all. I cross my fingers and hope that does not happen. But that's the housekeeping stuff. There's Mike Tomlin had his press conference on Tuesday, and I think the most pointed question that he was asked, although I don't think it's the most interesting question because Tomlin's answer was predictable. Tomlin was asked, what do you tell Steeler fans about, two fans who want to bench Ben? And Tomlin was asked, do you have any consideration of benching Ben? Tomlin said, quote, absolutely not. And then, so I think the question was, is Ben the best guy going forward? And Tomlin said absolutely that he is. And Tomlin was asked, what do you tell fans about, fans who want Ben benched? And he said, quote, I think Ben and I have been at our jobs long enough that we know and understand what comes with it. We love Pittsburgh, PA. We love Steelers Nation, and we appreciate the passion that they have, and we understand the responsibilities that come with our roles, him being a quarterback, me being a head coach. Oftentimes we get too much credit when things are going well, and we're always ready to absorb the negativity of our positions when things aren't going well. That's just life for us. So a very typical Tomlin answer there. Obviously, it's not going to placate any fans who do want Ben benched, but the team is not making a change there.
Did you clutch your pearls any?
Yeah, I got my smelling salts, and I was good to go.
Look, oftentimes on this show, and I got an email about this. We say, well, when it comes to things like this, people want to know why we aren't more vocal and let our opinions be heard when it comes to whether or not we think a benching like this or something should happen. And a lot of times my response to that is, people don't care really what we think about that, and just more in general. But within that, because really it doesn't matter. I mean, we could scream until the cows come home that either we think Ben should be benched or shouldn't be benched, and it just doesn't matter. So, but within that, people want to know what kind of side of the fence we are on, I think, with this situation there. Look, I said right from the get-go, I was okay with the decision to bring Ben back this season. I thought it gave them overall the best chance to win some games and potentially make the playoffs this year. Ben obviously hasn't played well, but where this team is right now record-wise, with it being this early in the season, no, I don't. I think it's too early to bench Ben right now. Now, I still think at some point, and I think it's going to happen organically, unfortunately, that Ben won't start some games probably towards the latter end of the season. Either they get eliminated from the playoffs, or he's just flat out injured and can't play. I think it happens that way. But no, I do, and I've been critical of him and been critical of his deep ball for a while now. I still don't think the right move is right now to bench Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the alternatives right now just aren't that attractive. I mean, everyone kind of likes to talk about the next guy and the potential, and let's try something else and try someone new. But half the fan base wanted Mason Rudolph cut in training camp, and they wanted Dwayne Haskins, they wanted Josh Dobbs and things like that. And so, Rudolph was kind of the whipping boy that everyone beat up on whenever he had one bad play. So, how quickly kind of thoughts and opinions change just, based on the course of the season. Again, Ben's not playing well at all. I mean, I'm not trying to dispute that one bit, but, that's the guy you're going to ride with for the foreseeable future.
I still think right now he gives you if certain other factors go right in games, he gives you the best chance to win. Right. End of story. Now, look, if you take the L to Denver in week 5, and if you take the L the following week at home against Seattle, then you go into the bye. I suppose the bye would be the perfect time if you were going to make some sort of a quarterback change. But even then, I mean, you'd be close to being out of it, I think, at that point, but still probably mathematically alive. I mean, you hadn't played, you still wouldn't have played any other team in the division yet. So, if Ben's still able to walk and get himself out there, I'm not going to be surprised even if they don't win another game, before the bye, if Ben comes out of that bye week as a starting quarterback.
Yeah, it was. Tomlin had a comment yesterday about the hits Ben's taken this year that I thought was a little strange. He said kind of it was not out of the ordinary. He said, I'm sure if you reviewed the tape and looked at the visits from the first 11 weeks of last year, I probably said similar things, and he was upright and we were undefeated. Ben did not take the hits last year that he's taking right now. So I don't really understand what Tomlin was trying to angle at from that comment.
But he did, I guess parsing what Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday, there was a little bit of, and how could it not be, finger pointing at Ben's play, especially this past Sunday. And there were things that Tomlin was encouraged by, running game being one of those things, and not having penalties being another one of those things, and not, I guess, giving up huge explosive plays over the head, even though they still gave up, six? The Packers had 6 explosive plays. So, I mean, I guess you're dicing up the positives there. At least the ball didn't fly over your head,
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, six explosive plays is still 6 explosive plays, man. I mean, that teams that usually register 6 or more explosive plays in the game usually come out of those games fairly well there. But I going back to it, there was a little bit of finger pointing at Ben in some of Tomlin's comments, right?
In what comment specifically? I'm trying to think of one.
Specifically some of the passes that he didn't hit, and then some of the mechanics. I think talking about he says talk to Ben about things that might be awry in his game, or do you leave that mainly to Coach Canada? And he said, yeah, basically that's why you have guys like Coach Mike Sullivan on staff, and trying to think what else did he point out about the Juju throws.
Yeah, I mean, I think in his comments overall, like, when he said especially Sunday post game was, we got to hit those plays. I think that's, saying that, Ben has to make that throw. Juju have to do some small minor things to do better, to be in position to make that catch. So, yeah, I think that was obviously a recognition that those plays were missed and, would have been big turning points in the game.
What did you think about his comments about? I think we sort of hit on this maybe the other day about some of the things that Charlie Batch may or may not have said. We have still, I haven't come across the audio or any transcript of that, Alex. I don't think you have either. Nope. There. But I think I get the gist of what allegedly Charlie Batch said, and that's Ben's shackled as far as changing plays, and especially in key like 4th down situations there. And Mike Tomlin, in so many words, was asked about that on Tuesday. And what did you think about Tomlin's response, and then kind of the follow-up to kind of nail him down to, was it just specific to that game against the Packers, or is that in general?
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. Tomlin said that Ben has a lot of freedom in his offense, but in his word weighty moments, i.e. 4th down, that he doesn't have as much freedom to check out of those plays. That that the call is designed for those situations, and that's going to be the call that they run. And so, in that sense, Ben has less freedom in those moments. Is that different than years past? I suspect that it is, but I can't say that for sure. Tomlin didn't comment on kind of comparing and contrasting. And Tomlin said that one reason for that lack of freedom was they were playing on the road, working on a silent count, so it's harder to communicate and change things and stuff like that. So he said it was more particular to that game than it is maybe for a home game this week against Denver. But yeah, I think overall my big picture thoughts is that I think Canada runs a much more structured, rigid system. He's a college guy. He's bouncing place to place. He's in one place for a year, goes somewhere else. And so you kind of have to have a more rigid system for, a 19-year-old quarterback to pick things up and run his offense. And I think he's obviously never worked with a quarterback like Ben with his experience and autonomy before. And so I think there's probably a struggle there where Canada's system's always been a little more rigid, where Ben, has had so much freedom in this offense for so long.
Tomlin also kind of pointed to the fact that they lost Claypool later on. And I guess it's more kind of like no huddle, and I don't know. I guess
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
You're replacing it with James Washington, who's a veteran guy. He knows the system. I mean, I'm sure some particular stuff probably changes, but it's not going to change anything big picture. Shouldn't.
I mean, maybe more so in certain situations in that week in that game earlier, because you didn't have Deontay, and then you'd lost Claypool several times during that game, was on the sideline. And then obviously you lose Juju. Essentially at halftime. I think Juju tried to come out and play 1 or 2 plays in that second half and didn't make it there. But here's something for you. Terrell Pryor was arrested this morning and charged with simple assault. Poor guy just can't. I guess that's one of the main reasons why, or one of several reasons why he hadn't been able to link on with somebody there. It just came across, but.
I'm sure somebody will still ask if the Steelers should sign Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, it does seem to be an annual thing for like five years running now, or something like that. But back to it makes more sense maybe if you get in a situation where you have the Ray Rays and the Cody Whites on the field, in those situations. But like you said, this past week, okay, you don't have Claypool, but you got guys like James Washington. Now, James Washington didn't miss a hot in that game, or at least we think he did. Judging by Ben's reaction, he did in that game. But he is a veteran there, and you would think they would be able to get by with changing some plays at the line of scrimmage with the personnel that they had.
Yeah, it just sounded like some weird cop-out from Tomlin. That's how I interpret it.
All right, now about those fourth downs specifically, you've spent a lot of time on them. I've spent a little bit of time on them. Mike Tomlin has been asked about them quite a bit. Mike Tomlin more concerned about the execution on those plays than he was the play calls, right?
Yeah, I mean, talk about each of the failed fourth downs, the two of them against the Packers. The first one was very similar to the Bengals game where the Packers kind of bluff pressure and drop out. They drop 8, and so Ben kind of throws hot in the right flat to Harris, and Harris gets swarmed immediately. And so it was very similar to the Bengals game where they bluff pressure and dropped out, and Ben tried to throw hot. At least that's my interpretation of it. The second one, I'm more comfortable with the play call, that mesh route. I know people get mad because those routes weren't run at the sticks, but there was a call earlier in the game, I think in the quarter previously, where it was 3rd and 4, and they had run mesh. The Packers ran man coverage, and Juju got open. So Canada was expecting man coverage again because it was a similar down distance and line of scrimmage, but the Packers did a good job to change things up and play zone on that play, and that kind of ruined the idea of the mesh working. That's a man-beating concept, and so that was the idea behind it. So the Packers being one step ahead of Pittsburgh in that sense out-schemed them. But I can understand that call a bit better than I could, right after the game Sunday.
But as I pointed out the other day, the fact that you had Najee Harris out there as an identifier, and at least on the left side there. Now you didn't probably get him out there soon enough as an identifier, but to me, there was enough there to show that was going to be a zone defense there that they were going up against there. Do you just shrug your shoulders and say, hold on, let's see see if we can, run this into the teeth of that? Or is that a situation where you either got to get the play changed, which was going to be tough to do by the time Najee Harris gets settled out there, it's like 6.5, 7 seconds on the play clock there. Ben raises his leg once, I think trying to maybe to see if he can get something else to show, see if they drop or something like that. And after that, it's like, 4.5 seconds left on the play clock, and even still, they didn't get the play. They didn't get this ball snap at 0. But that's a story for a different day. There, do you just shrug your shoulders and say they self-scouted themselves well and made sure to change in that situation there, or should Ben have called a timeout there, or should there have been more autonomy given to him to do you think Ben thought, man, this ain't gonna go well here pre-snap?
I think so. I think your options were either to call timeout or run the play, because to hear Tomlin say Ben doesn't have the freedom to change that stuff up, and there really wasn't time to do so anyway. So at that point, your options are, and I think they were down a timeout maybe at that point, and so that would burn the second one. Maybe it arguably still a better idea to call a timeout, I suppose. But that goes back to the idea of having more freedom for Ben can get you out of those situations. But I hear what you're saying, but your option really was at that point just to call a timeout.
All right, if Tomlin says, okay, I'm fine with the play calls in those situations, but not so much with the execution there. I believe that was the play that Dotson got crumpled over and gave up the big pressure in there. So that's obviously an execution fail there. What else wasn't executed well on that play? Or was that it? That's the thing that caused the entire fail.
I mean, what caused the fail was the Packers were playing zone. If they played man, that play would have worked. But in terms of the execution, it was Dotson giving up the pressure, getting hurt on that play with that hip injury that he suffered. I didn't see anything else on that play. But again, the big thing though was breaking the huddle with 13 seconds and then motioning out with 6. And so being late and rushing and everything is not helping matters. And so just kind of a bad process from the very start of the play.
I wish somebody would have asked Tomlin if part of his view of the execution not being great was the fact that they got to the line of scrimmage late, or does it matter? Because he just basically it doesn't sound like Ben had the Ben could have checked out of that even if he had got to the line
Right.
with 25 seconds or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Or,
no, I agree.
or would he have needed the communication, or could Canada have given him an okay in the helmet, you know?
Well, that's what the clock shuts off at 25, 15. I forget the time the helmet shut off, but that only goes on for so long. So yeah, I think the process of it was poor, and the Packers had a good response and a good tendency breaker, and that just kind of allowed them to win that down.
What would Tom Brady do?
Well, Tom Brady could probably check out of that play on fourth down. Bruce Arians would let him do whatever he wants to do.
What would Aaron Rodgers do?
Much of the same.
I mean, why do we have to ask those questions, you know?
Yeah, I think it goes back to Canada's system that seems to be a lot more rigid and kind of watered down a bit and more limiting than what Ben has been used to probably for the last 15 years.
All right, not that it's going to make a whole amount to the hill of beans here, but I couldn't help but go back and watch that other failed fourth down as well too. It's a mirrored concept on both sides, okay? Not that it would have helped any, because that ball came out. I mean, Ben couldn't have got that ball out of his hand any quicker, even if it was a spike, I don't think, in that situation there. But Eric Ebron did not have the best release off of that line there, and to me, he's got to run that almost at the same angle that Deontay ran that play on the other side there, and at least try to put that corner in conflict on that side there. Now, once again, would it have made him because he tripped him and
they tripped over each other. Ebron fell.
Right, him and Juju tripped over feet, but even so, it didn't look like Ebron had released at the right angle there.
Yeah, but it doesn't even matter because the ball got out so quick that they were barely even in their route by the time Ben threw the football to Najee.
Right, and I don't think Ben picked up on the trip, the feet tangling before then. But would you agree that Ebron's got to run run that kind of that stick concept cleaner and more at an angle to that side to conflict that corner?
Well, I'm not 100% of the route he was trying to run. I assume it was a corner route. I assume it was a spot concept, a 3-man route, a flat, a curl, which is the spot in the corner. But I'm not 100% sure because the dude tripped before he could make his break. I mean, there's obviously a spacing issue if those guys are tripping up over each other. But I'm not 100% sure what the route actually was.
I think that's got to go. I think he's got to come off more at an angle the way Deontay did on that other side, and then go then the vertical aspect of it. There.
Okay.
Because I think the whole thing is you got to put that corner in conflict out there.
Well, yeah, the idea
and you do so with him getting, because the defense that they were in, the angle that he ran that route started going out on, that outside corner does not have to account for that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is if that cornerback sinks on the corner, then you throw flat, and if he kind of plays up on the flat, that corner might be open like a smash concept.
Right, but he never had a reason to sink, and A, because the ball came out so quick, and
right.
B, I mean, I'm going layers into this thing had been held on to the football. You know.
Right, yeah. This was all moot because the ball – I mean, did Ben really feel like there was pressure? Because he looked at the line for a second. He saw those guys dropping out. So, I mean, he had to realize that they weren't blitzing at the snap of the football.
I don't know. I mean –
maybe not, but
I don't think he did. I think he's that spooked about it now.
Yeah, I mean that is some real tunnel vision because you could tell because they dropped out immediately, and so you knew they weren't bringing the pressure they were showing right at the snap.
But I mean, they didn't drop until the snap of they didn't drop out until the snap of the football, and they sugared them up pretty good. And I just feel like he thought, I think his mind was made up.
Right. No, I agree, and that's a problem. Obviously,
it is a problem, and that played a huge part. And look, once again, I'm going layers into this thing. Had Ebron even ran his route correctly there, with that ball coming out so quickly, that play's likely to fail. I wonder. I guess what I'm getting at here is because you have obviously Freiermuth settling in a zone spot there. on the other side. But I mean, he never even looked that way. To me, because of the way that Najee went out and you're loaded up on that side, the read's probably more to the stronger side, is it not?
Yeah, if it's a spot concept, that's going to be your first side of the progression. You're going to read those three routes, and if that's not available, then you're going to work backside. So, I mean, I understand Freiermuth was open. That's not arguable, but the progression was to the strength of the three-man concept.
Right, and it probably goes. It probably goes what? You would think Najee, and then probably Ebron, and then Juju, right, in the progression.
Well, I mean, I have a clip of, I think, spot somewhere, but usually the spot route, the curl, is kind of the first read. The guy that sits at the stick.
Juju.
Yeah, that's generally the first read in the spot concept because it's where the spot comes from. It's the curl route that Juju runs, but it just depends on how the defense plays it. If it's zone man, if they're playing, if they're sinking, if they're playing tighter, that's going to determine where the ball's going to go.
And obviously, if they did blitz, well, I mean, you would still think Juju would have been probably a good option in that, I guess.
Yeah, and if it's hot, then it might be Najee because he's in the flat. But even the Packers blitz, they would have brought like 5, and the Steelers had 5 to block it up, so it wouldn't have been like they were outnumbered.
That's another confusing thing aspect of it as well too. Is okay, they're sugaring it up. There was no indication that any defensive back was coming, or close to. It would have taken them a while to get there anyway. Had one of them come. So you have it. You have it 5-on-5 there regardless, and you would think you'd be able to handle that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you're safe. If you're 5-on-5, then the ball – you're only hot when they have more rushers than you have blockers, or there's some sort of extreme overload where there's a free guy that that's coming. If you're sliding one way and the brush is coming the other side. If you're 5-on-5, you're safe. That's not a hot throw.
Well, here we are talking about this, and Ben's already talked, and we don't know if he's been asked about it. It'd be nice to know at this point if he has been asked about it or not, but I don't know. Maybe that's something we'll be right. Do you think he was asked about that play?
He might have been. He might have said he forgot about it though, like he did last week.
That's true.
An answer. He's talking about mechanics, which is the first time I've literally ever heard him talk about mechanics before. So better late than never, I suppose.
All right, which of those 2 4th downs and your answer cannot be yes.
Come on. I can't do it. Dave answer.
Which one of those calls do you take most issue with? Both the and it's not an and or. It's got to be both the play call and the execution.
What do I take more of an issue with from an execution?
Both.
Ask the question one more time. What exactly are you?
All right, wait. Let me make it simple. Which of the 2 calls do you have the most issue with?
The first one, because I don't know what Ben was thinking on that play.
Okay.
I know what Canada was thinking on the second play. I know it didn't work, but I know what he was thinking. I don't know what Ben was thinking about why he got the ball out so quick to Najee.
All right.
Where are you at? Are you more of an issue with the first or second one?
I think the one to Najee, which was the first one, right?
Yeah, first one.
Right,
okay.
Because of just not understanding why the decision to just snap that thing and get rid of it so quick. The only thing I can think of is he thinks, man, I can't, man, I'm tired of getting hit.
Yeah, it's seeing ghosts. I know that's a heck of a term to use for a quarterback, but you're getting some of that.
Now, if going back to what we said about Roethlisberger, if Ben's gotten to the point now where he's just like, I mean, he even kind of rushed one of those throws to Juju down there, kind of looked kind of panicked when he shouldn't have been. Which one
was that? A completion to Juju?
I think the one down the left side that he missed on
one of the deep balls.
Right.
Okay, I'll have to go back and look at it. Pick up on that.
Looked a little panicked there for some reason.
His pocket presence has been poor. I think it was one last week where he drifted and took a sack or a hit because of it. So I know we're talking about keeping Ben, but we're beating up on Ben quite a bit here because he's not playing well.
Sure. I guess what I'm getting. I mean, if he's gotten to the point where he's very gun shy now, then that's going to just get him hurt more or easier there. So yeah, I mean he's mechanics is only going to help him so much at this point.
Yeah, and if he's got injuries, it's going to make it even harder mechanically. If you got issues with your pec and your hip, you're trying to compensate, and who knows? I'm not a mechanics expert, but probably doesn't help. So Anything else from Mike Tomlin? A lot about Ben. Talked about needing, more turnovers, but being more competitive in games will hopefully lead to more turnovers. Obviously, when teams have second half leads, the Steelers have not had a second half lead since week 1 against the Bills. So they've been playing from behind in third and fourth quarters for the last 3 weeks. Obviously, all losses, so no major surprise there. But hopefully, closer games will result in more takeaways. But Minka dropped an interception against the Packers, and that would have been a huge play for the Steelers.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I mean, we're still not discounting and Mike Tomlin said he still hasn't got a good look. I've looked at that blocked field goal from several different angles as well, too. And it's too bad there's not a definitive. They need a definitive down the line camera. Can't you look? Don't they have the yard marker guy that before every snap has that yard marker on the sideline right at the line of scrimmage?
I'm not sure. I don't know how high that camera is to look over and get a good view of some of those.
I mean,
things.
we're still measuring with the 2 sticks and a chain.
Right. They have fax machines in the NFL.
What year is it that we're not using freaking laser beams, man, to get this stuff done? But I guess what I'm getting at there, and I know you're asking for 80 different reviews maybe in the situations, but man, can't they have a camera right down the line on every given play? And should offsides be a reviewable play, or should that fall into at least the category of a scoring play being reviewed type thing? You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is all moot, or mute. Where I need to be sometimes, muted. But you see what I'm getting at there? I mean, because every angle that you see is not definitive when it comes to that field goal block, all 22 and everything. And another bad thing about the all 22 and the TV view, both, is you don't, at least I haven't seen it, who threw the flag and when.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Hayden to me was not offsides. I think he was just timing it well. He timed it exceptionally well in the first extra point. They didn't call that, so I don't know what was different about the second one to call other than the block and that felt too fast. But it looked good to me.
It looked good to me from everything that I can put together for a video. Yeah. I guess my question would be is, do they need some sort of a camera down the line? I mean, you got a pylon cam and those kind of things. It just, or are you creating more problems with reviews, I guess?
I'm all for reviewing it. I want to get things right, as opposed to if it takes a little more time to get the call right, then I think it's justified and worth it. Tomlin, I think, was asked if he'd gotten an explanation. He said he did not, and there really isn't much of an explanation to give. I think it was just a missed call.
I mean, it was obviously a huge turning point in the game. I'm not so sure if it determines the outcome, but you just never know how some of these things are going to go. Sure. Sometimes. So it's fair. It obviously is fair to discuss that play and be mad about it as a Steelers fan. And look, oftentimes, I'm so objective when I look at some of these things. I think, I don't know. I think maybe they got it right or wrong. In other words, go opposite what Steeler fans probably want me to do. But I think in this instance, they definitely got screwed on this one there. Mm-hmm. And it was a huge point swing in the game.
Agreed. Some positivity there from Mike Tomlin. Talked about the run game improvements, and they legitimately had their best run game and performance of the season, in my opinion. And Tomlin kind of seemed to feel the same way. He said, quote, "I thought we eliminated some negativity in terms of negative yardage plays. I thought we played cleaner from a technical standpoint. That's displayed in tape and also displayed in a reduction of penalties, particularly in the run game." So, I think they did a better job on first down. They avoided the penalties, negative plays. Had a better success rate, a really good success rate, as you pointed out, 70-something% for Najee Harris. I thought at the first level they did a better job creating movement up front on the D-line that kind of helped, get Harris to the second level and not have to deal with contact at the line of scrimmage.
I agree, and boy, even one of those misdirection tosses later on, what was in the second half, I've never seen Najee have. Poor guy probably didn't know what to do to see that much green grass out there in front of him, and you had Juju blocking up on one side there, and probably a little bit surprised maybe didn't get more yardage than what they got on that particular play, but that's something that we haven't seen a lot of. And the offensive line, look, we don't, none of them are going to the Pro Bowl for that game, but it was definitely better. I think at this way, and you had talked about this way ahead of Joe Haeg even playing, that Joe Haeg gives you probably better chance as a run blocker there. I don't think it was great, but I think it was better than what Okorafor has been giving you over on that side. So thus, I think it's either going to be Haeg or Zach Banner starting at right tackle this week, and that obviously is not great news for a guy like Chikwama Okorafor and his immediate future on top of it there. But there were successes there. I think Kendrick Green going back kind of play-by-play through that thing. There weren't a lot of times where he had a guy over the top of him, and that played, I think, to his advantage because some double teams in there and all. But pound for pound, play for play, I thought it was probably his best game of the season.
Yeah, better for the whole line, I think, across the board in pass pro and in the run game. So some small steps there, but some steps nonetheless, and that'll have to continue. And as Tomlin said, and as you pointed out, hopefully the next step is you get to run the ball in the fourth quarter. How many fourth quarter runs has this team had over its losing streak? Probably you can count on one hand, I'm guessing. So not being able to do that's keeping the rushing attempts down, and obviously not allowing you to grind out games or grind out runs late in the game.
Right. And they even had a couple of runs in the fourth quarter before they went all out, just passing there. But you need, obviously the volume's not there. I mean, Najee running just 15 times and you just having 16 rushes in that game tells you probably all you need to know, that they were trailing a lot in that game and didn't get to stick to that. And look, they're going to have to, if they're going to win some ball games this year, right, it's going to be because of their offensive line playing well and because of them being able to run the football and then the defense playing well. That's how that's the prescription to them winning games this year. If not, it's going to be Ben throwing 40 plus times, and then you get what you get.
Yeah, that's the blueprint. Anything else from Mike Tomlin that you want to go over from his press conference yesterday?
No, I think we beat it up pretty good there.
Aaron Rodgers, by the way, said that he's not angling to try to be a Steeler, but just says he has respect for Mike Tomlin. That was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday.
Yeah, and it's what we have said, right? Cordial. It's two guys showing a lot of respect for each other this past week, and the whole, a lot of be made about the the wink and the smile and all like that. But it's just two really great players / coach humans. Appreciation for the game, mad respect for each other, that kind of thing. And the quotes that Aaron had before the game, I think he made a point to say, look, he's always thought Mike Tomlin's a good coach. I don't see, and people will the rest from now until next season. That's all we're going to be talking about. Everybody's going to skip right by what Aaron Rodgers said on Pat McAfee's show on Tuesday and go right to the fact that there's a good chance that Aaron's going to land with the Steelers. I will be shocked if, and I think we've made, or at least I have. I should make it clear now. I will be stunned, shocked, amazed if Aaron Rodgers is in a Steelers uniform in 2022.
Yeah, I'm not expecting it either, but I certainly wouldn't mind it. I agree they have a lot of respect for each other, but the second Bennett retires end of the season, Tom is going to be hitting Aaron Rodgers with that 2 a.m. you up text. What are you doing, Aaron? So he might try, and I wouldn't be opposed to it.
It would be something for sure to get excited about if it did happen, but I think people were wasting a lot of hours in the day thinking about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's probably a fair point. So, all right, Dave, I know we've kind of already talked about some of the All-22 and Tomlin's comments, but to focus on that, going back to the tape of this one, what's kind of stuck out to you, positive or negative?
I think this is a perfect time for you to talk about what you saw as far as what you're seeing coverage-wise with this team.
Yeah, I had an article yesterday that kind of talked about how the Steelers defense has lost its personality. And this wasn't meant to be like a hypercritical evaluation of the defense or Keith Butler. It was just a recognition of kind of what we already know with some of the injuries in youth in the secondary. They're playing a lot different than they have been during their dominant 2019 and 2020 seasons. So zone rate coverage is up, 10 plus points. They're cover one rate's down 12 points. Their blitz rate's way down. Their 5+ rate is down significantly, cut in half, if not more. Their pressure rate's obviously gone down as well. And so your defense that in the past years have been a really aggressive, attacking, blitzing, man coverage defense, playing contesting the catch and making plays on the football. And now you're seeing a softer zone, less pressure happy kind of defense. And you're not getting the big plays out of it because you're not getting as much pressure. Guys aren't as close to the football. And I think it really starts, to me, I know the injuries at outside linebacker is one thing, but to me it starts with a younger secondary. And when you have less trust in your secondary, you're going to play more zone. You're going to keep the ball in front of you with the way this defense has allowed big plays. You're not going to blitz as often because if you're blitzing more, you have less guys in the back end to cover. And so I think it really starts there for me with this kind of the turnover in the secondary, the changes there has kind of altered the way this defense has really kind of called itself.
All right, but Cam Sutton's been around a while. Joe Hayden's been around a while. Minka knows what's going on there. Terrell Edmonds knows what's going on there. So has the fact that really, the limited amount of dime that they play and getting James Pierre on the field and obviously Millette versus Trey, is that enough to not trust Russian coverage going hand in hand? Now, obviously, with not having TJ on the field and Alex too for that one game, that makes a huge difference there. Are we going to see this thing start shifting back to a normal direction, I guess, with both the healthier this team gets? We haven't seen Stephon Tuitt. That's a big piece that defense is missing. But I just think it's the youthful secondary angle, it doesn't hold water.
Well, I mean, yeah, dime isn't a big part of this defense, but when you're in dime, you're almost always in a passing situation. So that's been 61 snaps this season. So, I mean, that's when you're playing your Norwoods and your Pierres and your Arthur Millettes and guys like that. And it's also been the guys that have been out there, they've gotten beat, twice. They've allowed those big explosive plays. And so I think last week against the Packers, they played a lot of zone because they did not want to get beat deep the way they had the 2 weeks before. So even with some of the veteran guys out there, the idea is we got to keep a lid on it. And that usually means playing a more softer zone coverage because when they played man, they've given up those big plays.
All right, but the plays that they gave up, though, okay, the home run to Henry Ruggs. All right, we've already talked about Norwood. If better execution by Norwood on that, that maybe that thing doesn't happen, right?
Sure.
All right,
yeah,
better execution by James Pierre right before the halftime against the Bengals, and just you do anything but let that guy get past you. Really changes the complexion of that game some.
Yeah, right. There's execution issues on both, but until the execution gets better, you're going to do safer play calls. Those are the numbers. The numbers are they're playing a lot more zone coverage than they have the last 2 seasons. So why is that? I guess we can argue and try to figure out why, but they are playing a lot more zone, and they are blitzing a whole lot less overall. They're a less aggressive team, so that's a very different style as Steelers defense than it has been the last 2 seasons, which is partly what made them such an effective and elite defense.
That's concerning if it continues.
Yeah, I think it might. It'll ebb and flow, obviously, a bit, week to week. But I don't know if it's going to be the same style of defense at any point the rest of the season.
Well, that's concerning. That tells you that there's going to be a lot of more pieces on the way, obviously, after this season.
Yeah, potentially, or just young guys that have to grow and mature and get better and, become better players. James Pierre, hopefully, this time next year will be better than he is now. Same with, Trey Norwood.
All right. Another interesting stat that you pulled up this morning about when Cameron Hayward's on the field.
Yeah, one of the more mind-blowing stats. And I know that, let me read you the stat, and I'll kind of give you the context to it. When Cam Hayward is on the field this season, the Steelers' run defense is allowing 3.0 yards per carry and a 44.4% run success rate. When Hayward is not on the field, the Steelers' run defense is allowing 8.1 yards per carry and a 76.5% run success rate. Now, that's not plays that are run at Hayward. They're just overall runs, so the numbers don't fully give context here, and the sample size with him off the field is small. I think it's 17, 18 snaps in terms of the run game, but still 3.0 when he's on the field, 8.1 when he's off the field. And the biggest offender to that is Henry Mondeau. When Henry Mondeau's been on the field, opponents are averaging 10.8 yards per carry on the ground.
Yikes. And I'm not a big fan of yards per carry or per per, I'm all about the success rates.
That's why I specifically put in the success rate just for you.
But I mean,
the numbers are stark there.
But when you look at the big difference in the actual yards per, that
when you're giving up 8.1, the success rate, you kind of already know it's not going to be good.
Right.
8.1 yards per carry.
Assuming you're not dealing with just like 2 plays,
right? Unless it's like 199-yard play, but that's not the case here.
Right. So that is concerning there. They need Tuitt back, man. Bad.
Someone give Alu a new ankle.
Right, for sure. And boy, Buggs did not have the tape, but not kind of Buggs in that game against the Packers.
Yeah, 5.0 yards per carry whenever he's on the field. Now, again, that's not all on him, but it's partially on him.
And those linebackers have got to play better on top of it there. And look, we said that we thought this, thought that this defense would take a step back. I didn't think it'd be this as big of a step back as it's been so far. So, look, they get some blame in this 1-3 start, do they not?
Yeah, they're not. Absolved fully of it. I mean, is the offense the bigger problem? Yes. But has the defense played well enough? No, it has not. And there have been injuries there, so maybe there are some more excuses. But the bottom line is they're not playing well enough.
Will it get better? We're talking about over a 7 adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat. I mean, if it don't get better, I mean, we're likely to be talking about this team out of the playoffs anyway in a couple more games. But they really will be out of it if it doesn't get better.
Yeah, I think it can get better overall because there's still some health of this group. Hopefully, the Tuitt return and wanting to be getting 100%. But if the numbers that I talk about don't change, if they're going to continue to play more of a soft zone defense and blitz less, then they're not going to get the results, which made them the elite defense in 19 and 20.
I mean, you have a team coming to Pittsburgh this week in the Denver Broncos that, quarterback situation and as banged up as they are and all like that. I mean, if you don't walk out of that stadium with an adjusted net yards per passing attempt stat on the defensive side of football of under 6 and really under 5.5, forget about it, man.
Yeah, especially if Drew Lock starts at quarterback.
All right, good time to segue.
Yeah, well, anything else from the All-22, or do you want to get to our conversation with Ryan?
Yeah, I've done less work on the defensive side than I have offensive side. I think we've already torn up the offense pretty decent here and gone through all of that. I mean, was there anything else to add on like the Juju plays? I mean, we did see at least Ben connected on a Mills concept to James Washington later on in that game past the 15-yard mark. So small successes there, but I mean, we talked about the run game having some success. I don't think there's anything on the All-22 side offensively left to talk about. Anything on the defensive side there?
I will say offensively, I think your point about running the RPOs was a good one. I think the most effective thing they did offensively consistently was those RPOs and hitting, James Washington and Deontay one-on-one on the outside.
Score one for Uncle Dave, but it wasn't enough. They obviously didn't run enough on the outside, but at least they were able to run there. What did you think of? I'm trying to think what else there was on that. Not using Pat Freiermuth enough in this offense, really. Right. He's got to be part of some of them RPOs more. If you can get the conflict player going the wrong way, we need some more of them quick hit RPOs to Freiermuth the way we used to see. Heath Miller occasionally used in those situations.
Yeah, or even Vance or Jesse, just some of those quick seam balls where the linebacker steps up on the run with a pulling guard or something, you throw it behind him. I have not seen that. I mean, it's a new offense, so maybe Canada doesn't have that in his arsenal, but I haven't seen that, obviously, this season. I
mean, we have reached a point now where Freiermuth should be 1A, in my opinion.
He's out-snapped Ebron in 3 of the 4 games, I think.
Yeah, but it really should be dramatic at this point to me going forward.
So it should be more like just 1 than 1A, because 1A implies a 1B.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree with you there. I think he's not been perfect or great, but he's been certainly better than Eric Ebron.
I mean, and I probably no sense to use the 2 tight ends period at this point. I mean, right? I mean, even with Gentry, if you roll Gentry out there now, you better start throwing to them at least initially, or throwing to somebody and making those plays to get defenses out of thinking that it's going to be a run.
Yeah, but to your point, Pat Freiermuth should not have as many targets as that Gentry. They each had 1 on Sunday. Which
right. Right. If you're going to run that shorter passing game and all, you need to figure out a way to make a lot of that maybe go through Freiermuth there.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. All right, Dave, let's segue here to the Denver Broncos. As we mentioned, top of the show, special guest, been on many times before, one of our favorite interviews, Ryan O'Halloran. You can follow him on Twitter at Ryan O'Halloran, Broncos beat writer for the Denver Post, also has a podcast called First and Orange. Let's take a break and come back with Ryan to talk about the Denver Broncos.
Okay, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Wednesday, and that means we have a beat writer from the opposing team that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be playing this week. It is Week 5. The Steelers will be hosting the Denver Broncos on Sunday at Heinz Field. That means we are pleased to welcome back to the show. I think it's his third or fourth time on the show. One of those times, I believe, was with him covering the Jacksonville Jaguars. He obviously now covers the Denver Broncos for the Denver Post. And I am, of course, talking about Ryan O'Halloran. And you can follow Ryan on the Twitter machine at Ryan O'Halloran. And I will spell that out, RyanOHALLORAN. And you can read his work, obviously, at the Denver Post, denverpost.com/sports. And we will have Ryan talk a little bit about the podcast that he also hosts at the end of the interview. So with all that big introduction there, Ryan, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast.
Hey, fellas. Good morning and good to be with you guys again.
Oh, absolutely. Great to have you back again. You've been, in past interviews, real popular with our listenership here. You do such a great job at covering the Broncos, who are coming off of an interesting loss to the Baltimore Ravens. A lot of Steeler fans I know were rooting for Denver to take that one there. Within all that, this is a banged up, I think, Denver Broncos team. Well, it was a banged up Denver Broncos team, I think, heading into that game against the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously, I think Teddy Bridgewater probably still in the concussion protocol right now. Let's start with that first. This team's lost a lot of people, had some injuries on the offensive line. Lost, I think, that speedy receiver out of Penn State, Hamler, and Jerry Jeudy, I think, is down still. Give us an overview of this team health-wise and kind of maybe what you were expecting the Wednesday injury report to look like.
Yeah, I'll try and give it a Cliff Notes version. This might take up the whole podcast. They were down at one point on Sunday. They were down 9 starters compared to Week 1. And here are the most. You mentioned Hamler out for the year. Dalton Risner, left guard, right guard out. Graham Glasgow could play this week. Teddy Bridgewater with the concussion at halftime. Jerry Jeudy's on short-term IR. He won't play this week with his high ankle. Ronald Darby, their projected number 1 corner, hamstring. He's eligible to come off IR this week, but he hasn't practiced yet. I think he's a little bit of a long shot. So it's Josie Jewell, their inside linebacker, who's sort of the quarterback of their defense. He's out for the year with a torn pec. So, they feasted on subpar teams who are still trying to find their way. Well, when a playoff season team like Baltimore came in here last week, the Broncos took a 7-0 lead, and that was it for their offense. The Ravens do what the Ravens do. They punched him in the mouth, and they rushed the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely they did. Quinn Miners got a few snaps there, and that's a guy that us kind of junior YouTube scouters, I guess, paid a lot of attention to during the offseason there. Hard not to, especially with what he did in college, and then obviously at the Senior Bowl on top of it there. Overall, just a quick glance at the tape from this past week there. Looked like he's okay in pass protection, a little sketchy in the run blocking department. How is his development coming along?
I disagree with their decision at the beginning of camp. They had him working as the number 2 center. They wanted him to challenge Lloyd Cushenberry. That never became a competition. And they finally, toward the end of the preseason, they moved him to guard, which is where they should have put him at the start, because I think that's where his future is here with the Broncos. He took over for Risner halfway through the Jet game, then played the entire Raven game, had 1 penalty. I didn't have him down for any negative plays in pass pro. In the run game, he did get tossed around a couple of times, but the running back was able to scratch and claw for a couple of yards, so I didn't knock him for a bad run on those. But, if Risner is more likely of the two to return this week, which means Miners would not start. but he better be ready to go in case Reisner cannot make it through the game.
When you look at the way the Steelers have been defending some of these teams these first 4 games, obviously like against the Bills, their main concern was kind of to bracket Stephon Gilmore. The Raiders, it was Darren Waller. This past week, they did their best to take away Devontae Adams. When you look at this Broncos team, and obviously down, not having guys like Judy and Hamler really hamstring the Broncos. They do have a very talented receiver still in Cortland Sutton, and obviously we're well aware with what Noah Fant. He had a pretty decent game against the Steelers the last time around last season there, but probably not the explosive guy, even still like a Darren Waller. If you're the Steelers, do you concentrate heavily on bracketing a guy like Sutton and just taking him away, or do you just kind of just stay within what you want to do there and not try to solely focus on taking away one player in the Broncos passing game?
Yeah, I played straight up. Right now, there is not a player on this offense in the passing game who should scare anybody. Cortland Sutton, you mentioned him. He's their leading receiver. He doesn't have a touchdown catch yet. He's about 54 weeks removed from his torn ACL sustained at Pittsburgh. And, he's had a couple of explosive catches, but it looks like he's still maybe working into form a little bit. Tim Patrick is, Mr. Reliable. He's not going to drop it. He'll help you convert a third down here and there. You mentioned Noah Fant. He's averaging 8.7 yards per catch. I mean, what is going on there? I point to coaching on that one. They got to get him in better positions down the field. He is not a Waller. He's not a Kelsey. So they got to get him going a little bit. So right now, this passing game is not explosive at all. They miss Judy. They miss Hamler. And if I'm the Steelers, I do what the Ravens did. I sell out to stop the run. That's what the Jets tried to do 2 weeks ago as well.
Well, Ryan, Juju's at 8.6, so I would love to have 8.7 for Noah Fant right now because I'm asking myself the same thing about Juju. But talking about Teddy Bridgewater, I know he may or may not play this week, but he's been playing so well for Denver. It feels like Denver, maybe I'm wrong about this, but it feels like Denver's the first place that really wants this guy and can use him effectively. What has made him such a good fit for the Broncos and kind of feels like this is the place he can call home?
Yeah, it's the first place he could call home since Minnesota, and circumstances like in the devastating injury ended his career there. But I think he has been rejuvenated. He's got some steps to clear. As we visit on Wednesday morning before he can play Sunday. I think if the Broncos were 4-0, they would sit him. But I think they realize this is a big game. So if he's cleared by the medical team and gets out there for a little bit on Friday for a walkthrough, I do think it's still a long shot that he plays. But these first 3 games, he was just so efficient. He was above 75% completion rate, no interceptions, converted some third downs, and really I think he understood what the game situation was. Hey, they're playing young quarterbacks. Their defense was going to keep them in check. Just don't give the opposition hope, and that's what he did. And what's impressive about Teddy is the way he extends plays without being reckless about it. He can get out of the pocket. He can climb the pocket. And I think he was really good in those first 3 games. When he got injured, he was 7-16, so he wasn't great. He wasn't playing great either. And then Drew Lock wasn't great when he replaced him.
Gotcha. I know the Broncos, in terms of the run game, have a 2-headed attack, Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams. Is there a rhyme or reason to how those guys get carries? Is it every other series, goal line? It seems like Gordon has played a little bit more early in games than Williams, but I don't know if that's changed in recent weeks.
No, for some reason they're sticking with Melvin Gordon. I mean, I would make this a Javonte Williams run game. I mean, he is a powerful run-through tackles back who can play on third down, who can receive. I would start a transition toward Javonte making more of an impact. The Baltimore game was the first time he had more snaps than Melvin Gordon. Gordon will, obviously likely start the game, but every time they get momentum in the run game, it's through the rookie Javonte Williams, who the Broncos traded up for in the second round this year. So it's a fantasy nightmare. I get that question every week. I would not start either of them in fantasy until they figure out who's the number 1 guy.
When you flip it over to the defensive side of the football, hard not to look at a depth chart for the Broncos and have Von Miller's name stick out. I believe he leads the team in sacks with 4.5 there right now. what are they doing pass rush wise? Other than that, haven't got into the defensive. We have the copies of the Jets game and the Ravens game of the all 22, and obviously starting to get deeper into that. Are they having to send numbers to get the pressure and the sacks, or have they mostly been kind of a 4-man, 3-man rush team? Or are they getting it done that way? And what do you expect them to do against Roethlisberger and kind of that makeshift retooled offensive line the Steelers have right now?
Yeah, well, first on the all-22, if you feel like beating your head against a concrete wall, try and watch that. It takes a lot. It takes a lot of NFL.
Yeah, they really messed that up bad. Podcast. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's a separate podcast. But for the first 3 games, this was a 4-man rush team. Vic sort of said, hey, with the quarterbacks they're playing, and then they got a lead. They sort of said, hey, we're gonna rush 4 and drop 7. That's how they were able to get some of their sacks. Looking at their first 3 games, I had them at 24.3, 22.5, and 30% of 5 or more rushes. Let's go to Baltimore, 60.5 on Sunday.
Wow,
that was the most of Vic's tenure here in Denver, But I think it'll go back down to 20, 22, 25% against Roethlisberger on Sunday because he's not a threat to leave the pocket. Vic likes to blitz against mobile quarterbacks to try and hem them in. And I think for the most part, he did that against Jackson. But you mentioned Von Miller. He's doing this without Bradley Chubb on the opposite end. He's on the shelf with ankle surgery. He's going to be out at least another month and a half. And with Von missing all last year, he's sort of discovered the NFL fountain of middle age. And he looked like he had a good camp. He's picked that up. And let's face it, he's been helped by 2 of the sacks. He wasn't even blocked, which is, the offensive line malpractice. But the thing about Vaughn, he's playing the run too. And this is the last year of his deal. And he knows he's got to be productive. He's got to be available to get that final contract and maybe stay here for his entire career.
I have a quick tip for you here. Don't worry about Roethlisberger running.
I watched the Packers-Steelers game yesterday morning, and he used to be a guy that would slide laterally, but he is. As a football fan, it was tough to watch him. Yeah, I'm sure it is for Steelers fans as well.
Absolutely. Speaking of running the football, Najee Harris and the Steelers running game, there was a little bit of a life there against the Packers. The volume obviously wasn't there, but they had a run success rate, at least Najee alone, of over 70%. And a lot of us spilled some drinks and all, I think, during that game when you're seeing a success rate like that. Now, albeit, not a lot of long runs in there, and obviously celebrating the fact that you hit over 60 yards rushing in a game is, I don't think the city of Pittsburgh is going to throw a parade there. But the run success rates were up. There was a little bit of life, especially in the interior of that offensive line. Now they play a Denver Broncos run defense that's right up there near the top quarter of the league in both yards per carry and rushing yards per game, and more importantly, run success rates against are way down there. Just running backs are not having a good successful run rate against that defense there. Now with the banged up inside linebackers, and heck, they even had to sign the former Williamson, the former Steelers linebacker, to the practice squad just yesterday. There is this how the Steelers are going to have to try to win? Because the secondary is great. Justin Simmons, Kareem Jackson, a lot of good names in that secondary there. Is this how the Steelers have to win this game? Is not turn the football over and have another strong run success rate against the Broncos, only with more volume?
Probably so. The Broncos rank 5th in rushing defense, and part of that is, I do think they are better. Mike Purcell at nose tackle is a very good base defender. But the first 3 teams they played had to become one-dimensional in the second half, so that sort of skewed the numbers a little bit. I got them with 16 run stuffs this year, which I look at as a gain of 1 or fewer yards. So they do run to the football. Alexander Johnson, their inside linebacker, is a really physical player. So if with the Steelers, okay, can you get Harris going enough where they have to respect play action? maybe. And what Baltimore did is they went after rookie corner Pat Surtain last week. And I thought Pat was playing too soft in coverage, getting worried about getting beat deep. But if you're Pittsburgh, it's like, okay, what's working? What you're trying to do hasn't been working. So you try and flip the script a little bit and say, hey, can we improve that 3.3 yard average, which is worse in the league, and see if you can lean on Harris, a little bit more, and put Ben into some manageable third down situations.
Play action. What's that play action word?
Gotta look that one up. Sticking with the defense, from a points per game standpoint, the Broncos ranked second in the NFL, which surprised me, but maybe it shouldn't because they played the Giants, Jets, and Jaguars. Is this defense legitimate in your mind, something to that caliber, or do you think it's up in the air because of the opponents in which they've been playing?
I think this is going to end up being an elite defense unless they continue to be just decimated by injuries. Mm-hmm. You look at the schedule. That was but here's the thing: they took advantage of that, and they didn't let them do anything. I mean, Jacksonville scored one offensive touchdown. The Giants scored one, and then a garbage time as time expired, and then the Ravens, hit the big play and scored two touchdowns. So, I mean, this was, George Payton is the new general manager here. They prioritized defense during this offseason in terms of keeping guys and bringing guys in. So they felt like they can put together an elite unit that can help a young offense win some games. That recipe worked in weeks 1 through 3. Thing is, when you're playing the Ravens, got to get a takeaway. And they were not able to give their offense a short field. The Ravens had success on third down. So I think this is a big game for this Bronco defense to sort of answer, hey, can you rebound from the other day? Can you create some pressure? Can you create some takeaways?
Mm-hmm. To be an elite defense, you need the big name guys, the stars like the Von Millers, the Justin Simmons, but you need the unsung heroes of the defense as well. Who are some of the unsung heroes on this Broncos defense? And look at guys like Caden Stearns, Malik Reed, maybe it's somebody else. Who are kind of the guys that maybe the national media, the casual fan, don't know much about, but have been really important, cogs in the Broncos defense so far?
Yeah, Malik Reed is a former undrafted free agent. He made the team in 19, started when Chubb got hurt, started in 20 when Von got hurt, starting in 21 when Chubb got hurt. So he's just been a productive player. He's got to pick it up a little bit in his pass rush game, but he's not Kareem Jackson is the most veteran player on the team. He's not he is a name. He leads the team in tackles. He brings a physical presence at that position. Watch out for number 22 in white on Sunday. He's like a missile. And then up front, there are guys who have signed new contracts. Shelby Harris, Mike Purcell, we talked about him earlier. They're both in the first year of new contracts. And then Draymond Jones is emerging, has sort of a slow start. He had expectations going into camp of being a 10 sack guy. That was his words, not mine. But he hasn't really done a lot so far. I think he needs to pick it up. And then I'll give you one more name. Bryce Callahan is their nickel right now. I thought he was their best corner last year until he broke his foot. I do think he's played well again this year in a role that takes advantage of him just covering the slot receiver.
As far as X factors on both sides of the football, if you had to name one player as an X factor going into this game against the Steelers, who would you name, Ryan?
On offense, I'll go back to Javonte Williams. I mean, I think they got to prioritize him. And I'm sounding like a broken record, but I think the fan base is in total agreement with me. Is this guy runs with a bad mood, and that's what you need in this league as a running back. So I would make this a Javonte Williams game. And then on defense, I mentioned it's going to be interesting to see Surtain sort of had a baptism by fire. He had a welcome to the NFL game last week. He may not practice today because of a midsection injury. If he's active, I would go after him. And so he wears number 2, sticks out like a sore thumb because of that number. And so, but I do think he's going to be an elite player, but he's getting really thrown into the deep end of the water the last couple of weeks.
The Steelers haven't been blitzing a lot this year, and have been playing a lot of zone stuff as well. Is that advisable against this Broncos offense, especially being without guys like Judy and Hamler? Is it easier to kind of keep everything in front of you that way? Would you recommend them blitz a little bit more?
If Drew Lock is starting, I would I would try and send a lot of people because that's when he panics. That's why he's not the starter. And so if it's Teddy, I think you pick and choose your spots a little bit. So I think if you're the Steelers coaching staff, you sort of put two game plans together, one for Bridgewater, one for Locke. Teddy feasted on the blitz during the first 3 games. Drew, his history is that he doesn't. So I think if it's Bridgewater, you focus on that 4-man rush. Try to get TJ Watt into some good situations. I'd put TJ Watt. I'd like him this week, even off the groin injury. I'd like him against either of the offensive tackles for the Broncos right now. Bobby Massey on the right, Garrett Bowles on the left. But if Drew Lock is at quarterback, I would send some pressures. I would try and create some different looks.
So you do expect Massey to start at right tackle because TJ Watt's worn him as a hat before.
Well, I don't think, right now, Calvin Anderson sort of their swing guy. Cam Fleming's their backup right tackle. I don't think that I think they stick with Massey. That didn't really even come up yesterday or on Monday about that history together. Maybe just give him a little bit of tight end or running back help.
Yeah, a little punch to the ribs every once in a while, or as much as possible, probably there, because I know T.J. Watt's had some nice reps against Bobby Massey in the past there. Okay, Ryan, where you at on this thing? It is Wednesday, a little bit early in the week. I know you still got some uncertainty on the quarterback situation. If you want to throw out a score, you're more than welcome to. But what's kind of your early read on this game?
Well, the early read is I don't know, but I'm going to try and give you a read is watching the Steelers against the Packers. I don't expect a shootout. Let's put it that way. So,
6-3, right?
Yeah, I guess the positive of that is the game would fly by. I would always go with a team that really needs the win and is playing on home field. And so my pick right now would be Pittsburgh, regardless of who's playing at quarterback for the Broncos. And so I something in the teens probably, but right now my lean is toward the Steelers because they realize what's at stake. The Broncos are 3-1. They're banged up. Their big one is the week following Las Vegas at home, and then a short week on a Thursday night at Cleveland. So with all those factors, I am going to pick the Steelers.
All right, so you would lay the point on that one for sure. At least that's where it was at, I think. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And I if the line holds, I looked this up yesterday. If the line holds, it'd be the first time since '88 Denver is favored at Pittsburgh.
Wow, that's an incredible stat right there in and of itself. All right, tell people, obviously they can find you on Twitter at Ryan O'Halloran. Read your stuff at the Denver Post as well. Tell them what else you do with the podcast and all, Ryan.
Yeah, you can, if you follow me on Twitter, you can find the podcast, which is First and Orange. It comes out Wednesday afternoon, maybe Thursday morning, depending on when we have time to do it. And then it's also available on iTunes. But I tweet it out as soon as it's available. So that's the best way to find that. And we'll have myself and Mark Kisler, our columnist in Pittsburgh, on Sunday, along with Aaron Onaveris, our photographers. So we've been traveling the last 2 years during this chaotic situation. Right. So always love going back to Pittsburgh. It's one of my favorite stadiums. And I appreciate you guys having me once again.
Well, Ryan, you're like I said, you've been on the show multiple times. We get a lot of good feedback when you're on. I think you're going to get a lot of shout outs on Twitter from our listenership as well too. And as always, we appreciate having you on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.
Okay, guys, I appreciate it. Thank you now.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our special thanks to Ryan O'Halloran. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Ryan O'Halloran, Broncos beat writer for the Denver Post. Great guest of the show. Very clear, concise answers. We always appreciate that, Dave. Absolutely, and I think we've gotten good feedback from him, obviously, in the past, and I would expect us to get some good feedback from this interview as well, too. Really clear and concise. Never have a problem getting a hold of him as well, too. I think he really likes being on the show.
And I think a lot of that's related to he does get a lot of feedback on the Twitter machine. And I know we got Margie's one. I mean, several of you are just absolutely fantastic, longtime listeners that we really don't, we don't get emails from, but we see you on Twitter and these things, thanking us and thanking the beat writers and all like that. That means a lot to these guys because they obviously aren't paid to come on this show to do that. And if they get good feedback from our listeners and are not harassed and all like that, they're more likely to come back on the show and sit with us for 25 and 30 minutes. And Ryan is one of those guys. So if you have a second and you got to this point of the podcast, and if you enjoyed listening to what Ryan offered up there, reach out to him on Twitter and thank him.
Absolutely. Would definitely appreciate that, Dave and I. All right, Dave, let me check in here. I haven't looked in the last couple of days.
I have.
Rudolph. I know you have. What's our Mason Rudolph stock doing? It's had to have gone up a little bit, right?
It has. Mason Rudolph percent change, 99% change, 0.99%, almost a full percent we've made on our money at PredictionStrike.com. I get a pat on the back here. Najee Harris percent change. 32.73%. Imagine if we would have put about, if we would have sold your Porsche and...
You keep saying I have a Porsche. I wish I had a Porsche.
You don't have a Porsche?
Someone give me a Porsche. You can give me a Porsche if you would like to make it true.
All right, all that money you have, all that Rooney money that you have, we've got to put that Rooney money to better use here. And I think, look, Pat Fireman, we bought some of that stock as well too. 6.91% change with him. We are some PredictionStrike.com moguls, if you will, Alex, the way our portfolio is right now. So if you're new to this show or just tuning in and say, what the heck are they talking about? Prediction Strike. Well, have you ever heard someone say, I've had stock in this player since day one? Well, now Prediction Strike makes that a real possibility. Prediction Strike lets fans get closer to the game and than ever before by buying shares of the players they love and really truly believe in. When the athletes perform well, when they grow into their potential, their stocks rise, and so does your portfolio. The world's one and only sports stock market where you can buy and sell shares of your favorite athletes, build portfolios, and make real money using everything you know about the game. You can check out the Prediction Strike app on the App Store and start investing today. Now, this is real money here that we're talking about here. You simply visit PredictionStrike.com to create an account, then deposit funds to buy and sell and hold shares of your favorite players just like you would real stocks. The value of the players will change based upon game performance and user demand, and you can trade your shares of players at any time. So this is real money that you're investing here, and you can make real money if you're as smart as Alex and I are.
Dave is.
Do we need a disclaimer? Do we need a disclaimer that? But within that, look, it's a great program. I know you've checked out the interface, Alex. It's very easy to read. Good dashboard there. The app is absolutely fantastic too. Get started today by going to downloading the Prediction Strike's new app at the App Store or by visiting PredictionStrike.com. Sign up using promo code TERRIBLE. That's terrible, and you receive a free share of an athlete when you deposit $20 or more. So go to PredictionStrike.com, use promo code TERRIBLE. It's very important that you do that to take advantage of this offer. Deposit $20 and get a free share of an athlete when you deposit that $20 or more. Go make yourself some money, and we appreciate them being an advertiser on the Terrible Podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you again to Prediction Strike. All right, Dave, before we get to read emails, I just wanted to take a couple minutes here, if it's okay with you, because I know we've ragged on the Steelers quite a bit here, but something that's keeping me grounded in good perspective is at least we're not covering the Jacksonville Jaguars with Urban Meyer and everything that's happening there. I just quickly want to get your thoughts on that situation. And does this guy last into next week, the rest of the season? I mean, what do you make of Urban Meyer's future or lack thereof in Jacksonville?
I didn't like the hire to begin with. It just seemed like, he's an old Florida coach. This is a way to get some season tickets sold. Draft a quarterback, get the old ball, the second old ball coach out of the state of Florida. Let's put some butts. Let's get some season tickets sold.
Yeah, bring in Tebow, that whole stuff. Yeah,
right. That's the way, like a circus, and. shame on Shad, for taking that route there. Man, if you did it right, got a real coach in there and a real GM situation in there, it would be better than what it is. Now, look, what is Trevor Lawrence going to become? I don't know. Some good stuff, at least initially, with him. So I don't want to say that's part of the problem there, because I don't think it is there. I did kind of question, you got a running back in James Robinson that, and then you turn around and draft another running back in the first round there, and obviously he gets hurt and he can't control that kind of stuff on top of it there. But back to the coach hiring there. Did you really think this is a guy that's going to provide stability to your organization, be there for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and be that guy that you look back on and say, man, I'm glad Urban Meyer was hired, because he's the one that helped turn this organization around? I didn't see it then. And how does this guy go about making the decision that he made to stay where he was at, not travel back at the team? And, in today's day, you might have been able to get away with this 10, 15 years ago. But as visible as a person, and I'm really, you opened up this, it's all on you for all this wasted time on the podcast here now. How do you not know that you're in a bar with a good-looking blonde rubbing up against you like that stuff's not going to show up on the internet?
Right. And not just in a bar, in your own bar, restaurant, wearing Ohio State stuff, taking photos. I mean, it's just a horrible look. You knew it was not going to end well. And then that's bad enough, obviously. But the idea that you didn't travel back with your team, you canceled the meeting on Monday, you really didn't talk to these guys as a group and own up to it. And even his press conference, he looked just so flustered and evasive and shifty. And it's just, he's somehow managed to lose the locker room a month into his first season coaching in the NFL. And for me, the bar for firing is pretty high. But once you lose that locker room, you never get it back. And so that's when you have to move on. And so he'll probably make it through the rest of the season, but get canned right after that. But he's already lost the locker room. And once you do that, to me, your time is up. To me, this feels like a blatant attempt to try to get Well, I can imagine how that interview or how that phone call or whatever with Shad Khan went. Well, I guess you got to fire me now. Oh darn! Guess I got to go to USC.
Yeah, well, caller ID is showing up the USC number on there.
Has USC even won him though? I mean, I guess obviously he's a great college coach, but like with everything that's happened, would you take Urban Meyer as the face of your team, especially with the stuff that happened with Clay Helton? And I don't know. I don't know if they would want him.
Look, our lives, and it takes people a long time to figure this out. It took me a long, long time to figure this out, way too long. Our lives, every little decision sometimes that we make on a daily basis can turn into impacting your life on down the road, what we eat for breakfast this morning, just little things like that. You really have to be cognizant of little decisions that you make in your life. That was not a good decision and I just don't understand how someone that's has been as successful as he's been and up there in the echelon of who's who kind of things can, well,
it's an arrogance. That's the problem. He's had so much success. He kind of probably thinks he can do whatever he wants.
I guess. But I would have cut. I would have taken the opportunity to cut and run with him right there. To be honest with you,
I hear you.
And let whoever intern within that, and I don't even know who's on that coaching staff, but there's got to be somebody that you trust more to at least run this thing for the rest of the season and put the kid in the right spot and get some development out of him. Because look, you're not going to the playoffs or anything,
Right.
With that team there. That would have been the perfect opportunity for Shad to save face and say, we messed up, horrible decision on our part. This is what we want to do right now to start turning this franchise around.
It's not like it was going well prior to this either.
No.
It's still going abysmally. I think actually Urban hired a pretty green coaching staff though, in terms of guys who hadn't had a lot of NFL experience. So there might not be a great guy to turn to, but I think anyone at this point is better than Urban. So I don't know exactly what time this whole bar club thing happened, but it was probably around midnight, and as Herm Edwards said, nothing good happens after midnight.
Right.
And usually that's directed towards players, but apparently in this case directed towards the head coach.
My old man used to say that too, and he was right. Not a lot good happens after midnight there, especially out on in bars and stuff like that. There go. But anywho, look, if a guy like Nick Saban can't really technically survive in the NFL, then I'm not a fan of these now look, there are exceptions of the rule. Cliff, I think, is doing a great job out there in Arizona. Pete Carroll obviously had success. I mean, it's not just a cut and dry thing, but you better be careful when it comes to these coaches coming out of these big time universities that have successes. That's all I'm out to say.
I'm with you. So anyway, I want to harp on that too much, but just it's fun to talk about someone else's problems for once instead of the Steelers' own issues. So all right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Before we do, Ian Rappaport reports that Broncos quarterback Teddy Bridgewater is progressing through the concussion protocol and feeling better, but not expected to practice today, source said. Drew Lock will take the first team reps with the Broncos today in practice. So expect to kind of be a question mark there at the quarterback position for Denver the rest of the week there. You think he plays or no?
That sounds positive. So if he practices a little bit tomorrow, limited practice, I think he's on track to play Sunday. But right. I mean, who knows? Protocol is, protocol.
Right, and we don't pretend to be experts when it comes to concussions or anything like that. Let's go here. Let's see, we hit Charles Munger the other day, so let's start with the newest one. I think Richard Jameson snaps under center. Did we already hit this or not? I got to open up. Let's see. The way that Ben Roethlisberger is getting battered, I'm beginning to wonder what difference it would make if Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins had to take over the quarterback duties. Most of all, I'd like to know what is their experience taking snaps from under center as opposed to from the shotgun. For that matter, I had the same question about Joshua Dobbs for next year. It's going to be a real problem if Joshua Dobbs still on this roster next year. I gather that would open up Matt Canada's playbook if the quarterback took more snaps under center. Thank you consistently for sound analysis and your willingness to help less informed fans like me enjoy the game. Well, look, Mason Rudolph obviously came out of a predominantly RPO offense at Oklahoma State. Didn't do a lot of under center work there. I'm sure he's learned some intricacies of it since being drafted, but he's still not going to be an every down or every other down under quarterback or under center type quarterback, and I really think the same goes for Dwayne Haskins.
Yeah, I mean, their competency, they're all veteran guys. They've been in the league long enough, Rudolph, Haskins, even Dobbs. I mean, they can play under center because you have to do it in the NFL. It's not like they're rookie or second-year guys coming out of college spread systems. So that's not a real issue. I don't know what Ben's under center snap rate is this year. I imagine it's higher than where it was last season.
It probably is.
Clear, but the effectiveness of it is a different story, I suppose. So to the point, though, I mean, can those guys work under center? Yes, they all can.
What is does Matt Canada's offense function better having a quarterback under center more?
I think ideally, yes, for him. He's always been kind of an under center as kind of the base and foundation of his offenses in college. That's why you're seeing some more pistol this year to try to compromise. You've seen actually a lot the last 2 weeks to try to improve this run game a little bit. So ideally, yes, Canada's systems are, a lot under center.
Jeff Berg writes in, shout out to the best Steelers coverage in the game. Kudos. Thank you, Jeff. We hit, how many posts did the Depot hit? Alex, you surprised me with that one the other day.
Oh, in a lifetime, yeah. We went over 60,000 career posts on Steelers Depot since Dave was starting this thing back in his cave way back when. So kudos to the whole team.
How many of those poorly written 60,000 posts am I responsible for?
Leading the fifth on that one. I'm not getting myself in trouble. I know this game.
Way too many. No, look, this thing's come a long, long way. I never would have imagined it. And you and Matthew just do fantastic jobs. So blessed you two of you have come in. We found each other, I guess, is the best way to kind of say that. And Josh Carney's been with us a while. Tom Mead's been with us a while. We got guys like John Heitritter and Tyler Wise and Owen and Michael Reynolds and Dr. Mel, and I'm getting to the area where I'm going to start leaving people out here. And but I think people get the sense of it. Ross and boy, who else? I mean, so many people do a lot of things, and I think the
Clayton's been really good with the
Clayton. Yeah, Clayton, a newcomer, doing good stuff with that as well too. And it's just the fact that a lot of these people can work without direction too, and that is a huge key of what makes this site successful. Is people know their area expertise. They know how to function once the game is over. Daniel's been with us a little bit now. Kitchens on top of it. Just very, very blessed. It takes a team. It takes communication to get all this accomplished. So shout out to the Depot crew,
Yes.
For helping us reach that plateau. Jeff writes, what do y'all think about Minka's performance so far this season? As expected, below expected, or better than expected?
Sorry, I'm muted for a second. Yeah, it's not been his typical Minka self. I don't think it's as bad as it has been for him, but he's felt a little uncomfortable. Like I said, I think I said this on the Monday live stream, that he was playing in the slot quite a bit the first 2 weeks, and since then he's kind of played more in his traditional safety lurk kind of role. So hopefully that kind of gets him on the right track. So he's not been as bad as some people like PFF made him out to be, but he's not been as good as he typically is.
All right, Joseph Diabero writes in from Connecticut. Hey, guys, I have a question about inactives. What is the point of it? You make cuts to trim the roster to 53, but come game day, you have to make the roster even smaller. So what is the exact reason they have inactives? Thank you for all you guys do. That's a good question. I think we've addressed that several points during the years when it comes to the podcast, but we'll address it again. It's more of a competitive balance thing is how the whole inactive thing came about there. Teams obviously some teams can obviously get injured more than other teams throughout the week, and kind of the inactive system. You expand the rosters because it gives more jobs. The NFLPA is all about for more players having more full-time jobs. So you appease that aspect of it. Second thing is the competitive balance situation is, having a certain percentage of your active roster players be inactive helps offset maybe one team being extremely a lot healthier than another team.
Right. For example, let's say you had there were no inactives. Each team had 53-man roster, and you could play 53. But one team has 5 guys hurt, the other team has 1 guy that's hurt. So now it's 52-man roster versus a 48-man roster, and that's the idea of one team already has the advantage because they're just playing with more guys, and so the idea and the purpose of the inactive is to balance that out. So ideally, you're playing with you are playing with the same number of roster players and active players each game.
Right, and it's a great question. One that I had at one time, So
I think Kevin Colbert has said that as well. He once wondered that.
Right, and and I think there's an interview or Colbert talking about that. I have something transcribed from one of my poorly written posts from over the years. I think if you search the site, Joseph, you'll find Kevin Colbert's comments on it. It doesn't feel like too long ago, but saying that it was probably 4 years ago. I don't know for sure, but here's the thing is now, you got a 17-game schedule. You'd like to see them expand the roster more, to me, provide more jobs, at least maybe even 2 more roster spots, and obviously, maybe 1 more inactive or 2 more inactives or whatnot, just provide more jobs, longer season, players getting hurt, yada, yada.
Right, yeah. I mean, I'm all for expansion of those kinds of things and giving guys chances, but we'll see if it happens.
Let's see here. Carly McAdams writes in, longtime listener, first-time emailer. We need some sort of sound effect there. Dear Dave and Alex, I was doing search of contracts getting ready to expire around the league and noticed a lot of quality offensive linemen scheduled to be free agents. I hate to say this, but could you envision the Steelers taking a page out of the Browns playbook and signing some quality offensive linemen in free agency as well as a cornerback to give the Steelers flexibility in the draft to possibly get the quarterback of the future? I will always hold Big Ben in high regard, but it has become apparent he doesn't have much left in the tank. I personally think the Steelers should scout Desmond Ryder out of Cincinnati, Malik Willis, or Spencer Rattler. That way the Steelers can sit the guy behind Mason for a year, similar to what the Chiefs did with Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, potentially there's a lot of variables there. Who the guy is, what's the cost, what the Steelers cap situation is, what are their own signings and re-signings. But I will say this: I mean, obviously it does happen, but quality offensive linemen rarely hit the market because everyone's looking for them and few teams have them. And when they're out there, they are not cheap. So if you want a quality offensive lineman, you pay the quality offensive lineman tax in free agency because it is not cheap.
And I would suspect at this point probably the most likely position would be either a tackle or a center if you went that route. Now, I don't think that they're going to give up on Kendrick Green anytime soon there. And left starting tackles in the NFL are not cheap. Really, I mean, as you put it, top of the market guys, you have to pay for it. Now, this team will have a little bit of cap space. I guess, Carly, to answer your question, it's not impossible, as I like to say. I would be a bit surprised, though, if we got to week one of the 2000 or really to the draft next year in 2022, and we're talking about, well, we can X off a guard and or tackle or what have you because the Steelers went out in free agency and got one. I find it hard imagining myself saying that.
Yeah, and I'm sure some of those guys that you're looking at will hit the market, but the number of guys who are about to be free agents and the guys who actually hit free agency that don't get tagged or re-signed is going to look a lot different. So teams know the value of offensive linemen, and they don't want to let those guys go.
And cornerback, too, really, I mean, the Steelers don't have a history, and they usually like to stay within a hierarchy as well, too, of salaries when it comes. I mean, look, I mean, for up until Joe Hay, if you want to look at true free agents, though, I mean, how monumental was the signing of Mike Mitchell several years ago, early on in free agency, and that was it a 5-year, $25 million?
25, yep, 525. That was a big deal for the Steelers at the time.
I mean, that was a huge monumental moment, really, for the Steelers. Once again, you know, Joe Hayden's not long for. Maybe. I mean, I don't guess it's impossible. It's not going to be Stephon Gilmore, right?
He's out there, but I would not expect him coming into Pittsburgh.
I mean, I know a lot of the talk this morning about Stephon Gilmore and the Patriots parting ways, but I mean, that guy's 31, and the Steelers, if the Steelers were for somehow reason to get into the market of Stephon Gilmore, it's not going to be a 1-year deal, right? It just does not fit what the Steelers, and I don't, and on top of that, now let me add that I don't think it'd be a 1-year deal with voidable stuff too, basically a 1-year rental. I just don't think that that's the way that that Kevin Colbert would go in that situation. Do you want to really pay a guy? What's he worth? 8, 9, 10 million?
Yeah, probably somewhere around there. It's a weird situation, so I'm not really sure what number he's going to come in at midseason. 31, talented player, but injured, released. It's hard to peg it.
Let's say you had to give him $7 million in 2021 for the remainder of the season for the Steelers to sign him. Okay, but as part of that, you know, obviously you'd probably have to do some voidable year stuff, but all you have him for is just a remainder of this season, all right, at $7 million. Do you do it?
I mean, I guess what's the downside to it? I mean, if it's not hurting your cap in future years, then maybe, but also like you can have him play for. But
it would hurt. It would hurt your cap in future years because you're doing some voidable stuff there.
Oh, did you say the voidable years? Okay.
Right.
Yeah. In that case, I probably wouldn't do it if there's going to be an impact on the cap beyond the season. If it's not just a straight 1-year deal.
I mean, what would the addition of Stephon Gilmore to this team for the rest of this season do to their playoff chances?
I mean, it's not going to move it enough. And then in that case, does Sutton get benched? Does he go to the slot? Sutton, you finally started him. You gave him a contract too. So, I mean, I just don't see it happening. But yeah, point taken on the playoff chances.
And the reason why I throw out that $7 million because you're not going to give him more money than you're giving Joe Hayden.
Yeah, right. He's already mad enough at you for not doing an extension. You want to really run him out of town, then that's a good way to do it.
Right. So, I mean, have at. I mean, some of you have some pretty big birthday wishes, it seems. I imagine some of you get highly, but I'd like to see a list of some of your listeners' birthday wishes. They're probably over the moon there. All right, let's see. Thanks, Carly, for that email there. Let's go on to Brian Tellini writes in, not ready to say it's over yet, but it certainly isn't looking pretty. If the focus starts to shift to 2022, can you see in 22 free agents like Joe Hayden or Juju Smith-Schuster or anyone else being traded for draft capital? We've been asked a little bit. I think we hit on some names that maybe this team could maybe sell off. I wouldn't think Juju would be one of those guys. I could maybe see a guy like Joe. You probably would disagree. I could maybe see a guy like Joe Hayden being shipped off and go get yourself a chance to win a ring or whatnot, because you dang sure ain't coming back here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying I would hate the idea. I don't know if I would love it. Depends on the return, obviously, but I just can't see that happening. I think it'd be a lower name guy. James Washington kind of makes the most sense to me. Maybe a Chris Waddle.
I think they owe it to Joe to maybe try to shop him to a Super Bowl team. To be honest with you, I'd like to see Joe go to. They're going to upset some people, Tampa or wherever, Green Bay, whatever, to maybe get a chance.
Tampa kind of fits, Florida boy. Secondary's been hit hard by injury. I mean, but I don't know if they owe it to him. I mean,
I think
no
Joe
one knows anything in the NFL.
Is 2021 Joe Hayden's last season with the Steelers?
Yes.
I agree. Yes. Is Joe Hayden an incredibly great human being?
Yes.
Does Joe Hayden deserve a chance maybe to win a Super Bowl this season?
Yes.
Can the Steelers get maybe a 5th round draft pick for Joe Hayden?
Maybe.
I think you try to, if Joe's up for it, I'd go to him. I wouldn't blindside him with it, but I would go to him if I get out of this thing. And by the way, the deadline's November 2nd, I think.
Okay, so a little less than a month from now.
All right, so if I get to that point, I think I can get a 5th round draft pick, and I know the season's done with and all like that. I'd go to Joe and say, hey, Joe, you want us to maybe shop you and see if we can get you to a place to maybe win a Super Bowl? I would. I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for that, ain't I?
Probably. I mean, I get it. I mean, from a calculated football standpoint, but that's a really valuable guy to that team, a lot of leadership, and maybe that's not as important as the 5th round pick if you're going to lose him after the season, which is probably what's going to happen. So I hear you, but that'd be a very un-Steelers move to make.
All right, Bryce has he's writing about Stephon Gilmore here is one of his questions. I think we hit that, Bryce. His other one is, I know you guys have talked about seeing Dagger, Mills, and Hank concepts in the Steelers passing game, but as far as I can see, I'm not seeing a lot of that consistent drive concepts as well, too. That seems like a simple way to attack the middle of the field, and it looks like the Steelers shy away from that as well. Am I seeing this correctly? Have we not already talked about how they're not doing? We saw some Mills there, I guess, late in the game against the Packers, but if you can't protect Ben Roethlisberger long enough for stuff to develop down the field like that kind of stuff, then you're not going to see it. We just have never, you don't see a lot of that stuff with Roethlisberger, period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's been an issue before this season, so I mean, I'm not anticipating it changing greatly the rest of the way.
No, I think the best way you manipulate this thing moving forward is what I've already said. You try to establish the run with Najee, and you RPO the living dog mess out of this stuff, man. And maybe try to get some check twos or check out ofs stuff where you can go slot fade verticals. Man, what would you give to have that right now? A Claypool or a Juju slot fade hit?
Yeah, man, I'd give anything right now to hit one of those, what I call those chop routes. So, but yeah, it starts with the run game. Run game has to be better. If that doesn't improve, then the rest of it's, to me, moot.
All right, perfect jumping off point there, Alex. Good show as usual. We got a lot of great stuff coming up on SteelersDepot.com for the rest of the week here. Alex and I get back at it again on Friday. You can find me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Find Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the cause, go to SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also for ad-free, Go there, hit the ad-free button, $25 ad-free version. Within all that, Alex and I will be back on Friday. As always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.